people who could be your neighbors. So again, we hope you enjoy that. We're doing these in two segments. One is a general overview of the South Florida Speaks, the question and answer with people from all of the films. And then today we're bringing you a specific detailed discussion on open dialogue, stories from the LGBT community. So we're very excited that you're here to listen. We have some great panelists, and we look forward to asking them some questions and hopefully getting some of yours in as well. I'd love to start with bringing in Freddy Rodriguez. Freddy is the director of photography, and the editor of Open Dialogue. Welcome, Freddy.
Hey, Joe.
Good to see you. Goodman Public Relations, Michael. Is Michael with us?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. And then we have Omar Morales, who is an office assistant at SunServe.
The reveal.
No. There's Michael. Omar, are you there? Such are the
Let
joys.
me unmute. There you go.
There you go. Okay. The joys.
Yes.
We've been doing this for 5 months.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Omar. Thank you so much. All right. Before we get into the crux of open dialogues, Freddy, you are a South Florida filmmaker, and this is the South Florida Speaks. We're trying to highlight and show people, not only in South Florida, but throughout all of Florida, that there really is a filmmaking community here in South Florida. It's not always gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or those kind of stories, but it often is. And we just were very fortunate that we had enough content this time to actually do a program of it. Can you speak a little bit about South Florida and the filmmakers and sort of the, is it a easy, tight-knit community? Is it harder to sort of find resources? Just sort of talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, I think that in like the past 5 years, you've really seen this explosion. It was kind of like, I think once Moonlight had the success that it had, it started to put a spotlight on South Florida and South Florida stories. So the talent doesn't really need to, we got a phone call. So the talent doesn't necessarily feel like it can tell those stories if it moves to LA or New York. So you're beginning to see a lot of films happening and a lot of filmmakers either coming to Miami, back to Miami after doing their stint in LA and New York and saying, you know what, I can make it happen here. And I want to tell South Florida stories because we're a very unique ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, it's we are a tight-knit group. We know each other and we support one another.
And with that, are you finding more ancillary, like things that service the filmmaking community? Because that's another sort of thing you need is sort of not only the creative component, but the rentals and all those kind of things that again play a
support
role.
Listen, I mean, it got really good. There's a whole other conversation around tax incentives and bringing all the companies back. A lot of people had to leave town because we lost our tax incentives for huge productions to come in here, but they were really using Miami as a backdrop. They weren't really telling Miami stories. So it's a little different. I think the people that are here are people that are going to get films done
Broward Pride grant. And we had been trying to find a way to sort of build a relationship with the LGBTQ community in Broward County. And we had done solo exhibitions of artists, and we've always exhibited LGBTQ artists. This was an opportunity to do something a bit more expansive. So I thought going at the traditional sort of gallery exhibition route, shared space. And it would have been impolite to hang the phone up on that man who was sharing in very revealing terms the most powerful and important part of his story. So when we came to put together the idea for the film, the original idea was to sort of get 7 to 10 coming out testimonials, fairly simple, point the camera at somebody, tell us our story, edit it together. We got the grant. And once we got the grant and we started to piece together really how this could become more of a film versus just a video, we were able to attach Freddy to the project, and that really did elevate it from being something where, you know, it's just me telling my story into a camera to really an artful piece, I think, where the tone really that Freddy was able to capture. And we did about 5 hours of video, and I said to Freddy, you're going to make
Freddie, can you talk a little bit about the process? You know, of if you helped to find the people, you know, did you have any preconceived notions of how it was going to look and feel, or did that sort of come by after you got the interviews? How long did it take? Well, I know we had 5 hours of footage, but was that, you know, 10 hours of shooting to get 5? Just talk a little bit about the process.
Yeah, so no, yeah, we did talk extensively about the look and the feel. I pitched it, and immediately, like, so I had read the grant. So I kind of knew what the point was, which was people around Broward County were feeling kind of disenfranchised from each other. The gay community felt like everything was localized in Milton Manors, and if you lived out west, you didn't really have a voice. So the idea was to bring kind of all these voices together, and I got that. I got that immediately because I live in Miami, and it's the same thing, right? I don't live on Miami Beach. I live next to the airport, next to Hialeah. So it's like, there's tons of gay folk in Hialeah, but we're always focused on the east side. So I kind of got that. And we talked about it. We talked about the look. And I immediately pitched and said, I'm seeing this in black and white because black and white, it's actually a series of grays and it's a neutralizer. It makes everybody the same. And my fear was to get into a lot of color and have skin tones look different. And the technical side of that, but I just like the idea of black and white simply doing a series of gray. That way everybody's the same. And they went for it. They thought it was great. And yeah, and then we went from there. We set up 2 days to shoot. I think we shot 7 hours. Wasn't there, how many people are in it? 7?
7, yeah, we're about 40 minutes apiece.
Yeah, 40 minutes apiece. So yeah, so it's just doing the interviews, and then, you know, Jeff had a series of questions, and it was more like a conversation. We had a 2-camera setup. We knew from the get-go that we weren't going to be shooting any B-roll. So it's basically just looking at people's faces. So I immediately was like, listen, we're going to need a 2-camera setup so we can kind of cut between and take out any pauses or anything like that. And that was really it. The rest was just people feeling comfortable and telling their stories. And I mean, everybody will talk about that. But it's really their magic.
Yeah, I think it was all magic combined, and I think the more footage you have, the harder it is to tell such a story in 20 minutes that you did. So again, kudos to you. Let's switch to some of those stories, and I'll start with Dan, because again, Dan has to leave us for something soon. But Dan, one of the things I loved about your story, especially towards the end, you talked about how you sort of grew into your wisdom, or life got better and better and better, and that really touched me, and I found that to be a very sort of moving moment. I sort of have 2 questions. How long have you been in South Florida is sort of the first question, and the second question is, when did you sort of come to realize or grow into your comfortability with being who you are?
So first of all, I've been in South Florida since the late 90s. So I moved down here right after college, and it was a long process going, you know, through your story. South Florida tends to be a very free and open sort of area, so it became a lot easier. You became more comfortable with yourself. You gain your group of friends, your support system, and you know, living in South Florida, it's been fantastic. Generally in the Wilton Manors area, but really throughout South Florida, it's such an accepting, welcoming environment here.
Do you find that with your school as well? You're an assistant principal, correct?
Correct.
And I assume it's somewhat of a progressive Episcopal, maybe not, but do you find the same acceptance?
Yeah, the Episcopal religion is all about accepting everyone for who they are. So they're very open of accepting everyone from every different religion and school, different backgrounds, sexual orientation. It really doesn't matter. I don't announce it, but you know, plenty of people know that I'm married to my husband, and they're very accepting of it.
Great. Thank you. And again, I understand you need to leave. Thank you for being here, giving of your time, and your story was, as all of them, were really touching. We appreciate you sharing it.
Thanks so much.
With the camera and with us. Let's move on to Francesca.
Hi.
How are you? Always a smile. I love that. One of the things you talked about was sort of, I don't know if you use the word, but sort of this self-hatred and overcoming that. And it sounded like one of that ways was sort of giving of yourself, and sort of making sure that nobody else has these feelings that you had. So just talk a little bit about that, how you transitioned from this, you know, maybe place of darkness to this place of light.
Sure. Well, transitioning is a very long process, and society, unfortunately, does not make it easier for a trans person. So I had to go through a lot of identity issues, cultural issues, and just hone in more on who I was and what would make me happy to become my true self and the person who I really am. Throughout the whole process, I've really learned how to love myself, and I just share of myself because I'd love other people to love themselves as well. And it's not just a trans issue, it's a universal issue.
Have you been in South Florida area long, or?
I've been here about 25 years. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, so I've lived in different continents and in different states, but Florida is my home.
Great. Well, again, thank you for sharing your story, and we'll come back and have a few more questions later. Let's move to Gary. You talked a lot about your coming out, and again, some really emotional times. Was there anyone that was, and you were married, was there anyone that was particularly hard to come out to, maybe harder than the rest, even if it's a little bit harder? And were there any surprises in that coming out process to you, either people who didn't accept you or did accept you, you know, sort of immediately?
It's very nice to say that I have very few regrets in my life. One of them was I was exceedingly close to my in-laws, my wife's parents, and especially her mother. And telling her and the separation that happened was incredibly painful. We were very close, maybe as close as I was as close to her as she was to her sons. And so to lose that third son was extremely difficult for her. And the pain I caused with that, probably one of those very few regrets that I have, but I can't change it. I had to be who I was.
And again, that comes through in the film. And have you been in South Florida long?
41 years. I came here to do my master's at the University of Miami, and I never left. And Miami has been incredibly wonderful to me. This has been a great, great community.
Good. I look forward to coming back, and I think in the end we're going to talk a little bit about community and what it all means to you, and because you're all in such supportive roles of the community, so we appreciate everything you do as well. Michael,
Yes.
one of the things that struck me, and we know each other, from a social basis, and one of the things that struck me, and I apologize if I'm bringing up something, but you talked about your bashing. Sort of, when did that happen? Were you already sort of established as an out gay man? And then how was your reaction? I mean, did it make you sort of maybe revert back, or did it make you even come out more hard? It's got to be such a difficult situation. So I appreciate if we can sort of hear from you.
Sure. So I've been here 48 years. So I'm giving away my age, but I've been here a long time. And, actually the bashing was the oddest thing that had happened. I don't know if you remember the Copa back when, but it happened in the Copa parking lot. And it was about the time when I had first come out and was really sowing my oats and having a good old time. But a friend and I parked in the parking lot where you had to go in and, go through the entry doors, and you go in, and there was a van full of guys. And when we got out of the car, they were kind of throwing some slurs and stuff. And then all of a sudden, the five of them attacked us. It was eye-opening for me to even understand how someone could have that much hate. And it made me retract a little bit. Of course, it puts you on edge in other public settings, that you're at risk for being who you are. But I think I persevered beyond that, and I feel a little bit more comfortable in my shoes. If they're in my regular shoes or my share shoes, I feel more comfortable.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for sharing that story, and I appreciate it, as I'm sure our audience does as well. Omar, your turn. One of the things I really appreciated about your story, and I think it was one of the first things you said, was how society has these expectations that they expect you to be one way or another, and you were not going to have any of it. So you were going to be true to who you were from the start. So to me, tell us a little bit about that, and where you got sort of that energy, and where you got that, watch out, I'm here. Whereas so often that's not the case. You have to sort of build into it and work into it. And you were just like, here I am, love me or not.
Yeah, exactly. It took me a while to get to that point. Just like everybody else has a journey. Well, mine was pretty much like that. In the beginning, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I questioned everything that I was doing. And at some point I said, stop, do it. Shut up, move on, jump up, like I described on the documentary, and get your air, breathe. It's okay. And that was kind of like my journey. It took me a long time, like I said, to get there. But it was part of the journey that I had to go, I guess. And it has been great. I can understand why people will question some sort of decisions, or why did you do this, or why would you go through that? You're an older person, and it's going to be tough on you, and blah, blah. No, it has been the greatest gift of all, was to come out and live my truth. And I have been enjoying every moment of it. And I think I put that everywhere I go. It makes me happy. Makes me filled with joy, the fact that I can talk to any single person just because I went through that journey. and have a conversation, give them their moment, that's the biggest prize that I can get, if I may say, for this.
Yeah, well, yeah, again, thank you for sharing your story. How was it, this is sort of for any of you who might, be able to speak to the question of how was it to sort of tell your story? Was it something that you were like, yes, I'll do it? Or did it sort of take some coaxing into, and then sort of the second part of that is, was it odd to see yourself and hear your story? You lived your story, yet you're telling it for other people to sort of live through you. How was that process?
I'd love to start. So I want to first, commend the Art and Culture Center Hollywood, and I want to commend Freddy, because they did a great job of putting this all together. But for me, it was very therapeutic. It was kind of like being on a therapist chair for a little while. Freddy and Jeff made it very natural, and they had prepared an agenda and questions that had a nice flow to it, so it kind of was easy. But when the final piece came out, we did a little preview, and you know what? I was really taken aback, because you don't always sit and reflect. All of us go day to day, and we do our thing, and we're doing great things, and you don't really sit back and take that in. And so the video for me was really cool, and not only my story, just seeing myself like that, but the other people that were included with me. It was so phenomenal to hear that I wasn't alone. So kudos to those powers that be that made it happen, and I was glad to tell my story. It was a great opportunity. I'm glad to be here today to do this more.
Yeah, in my case, if I may say, can I? I said, yes, of course I'll do it. Me, oh, sure, anything. Of course, Freddy, of course. Why would I say no to Freddy? But then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wow, this is amazing. These people must have been exhausted. I was the very last one that they interviewed that day. They must have been tired. But however, they got on it, and they made me feel so comfortable, to a point where I was talking about things that I have never spoken my entire life. And it wasn't until I got back to my car, just like Michael said, that I'm like, wow, I do have a story to tell, and I'm okay. This is great. This is cool. I like it. Then when the showing came up at the museum, I was so excited, but I was terrified at the same time, because, oh my God, I'm going to look stupid. I'm going to look weird. People are going to laugh at me, whatever. Well, they still do, but the video came out nice.
For me, it was different. I had the pleasure of knowing Freddy many years ago, working within the AIDS community. And so immediately, because it was Freddy, I was at ease. Mm-hmm. And he knew some of my history, and he was able to ask some questions that really touched me. And I felt really excited about being able to speak about them and be comfortable about them and share them. And as a former teacher, I hope kids get a chance to see this, so that they see what all of us who are so different went through this whole process, but that we are successful and that we are happy. And that's important.
And fabulous, don't forget.
Yeah.
And alive.
Absolutely.
Can I just say something real quick? I really want to throw this to Jeff, because, sometimes when you're gay, you don't really realize what you're living, and you really don't. And it really takes a person from the outside saying, hey, what you guys are going through, and the stories that I'm getting back, or the stories I've been exposed to, are miraculous, and we're in it and we don't see it. So when I'm sitting there and I'm hearing Gary's story, Francesca's story, Omar's story, Michael's story, I'm like, oh my God, these are my stories as well, but I didn't realize that, So, it's great that the Art and Culture Center saw that Jeff saw that and said, these are stories we want to tell, and it's important. And it's important to have an outlet, right, like Outshine, to say, this is where we show these stories.
If I may, I think one of the things about telling your story is we all go through periods where we question ourselves, where we feel people may doubt us. Just dropped my daughter off to university, and I said, I've raised you for the day when you're alone in a room crying and you have to get up and get on with it and just go. don't, and my 3 words for her is don't give up. Whatever you do, don't give up. So we all live that. And I think as a member of the, I guess, the straight community here, coming from that, one of the things I wanted in putting together the themes and the questions was there were 2 things. One is when you start out and you hear, if you just heard Michael's story of hardship and not Michael's story of coming through that, or Francesca's story of how she was suicidal, how she's in a happy place now. So as we went through this, it became really important to not, to find a tone where it was the hard, but it was the thing that came through for me, for everybody, is the strength of each individual to go on with it and not give up, and to come to a point where, one of the I guess the thoughts in working through this as a straight person, trying to understand this, was if you don't accept yourself, how can you expect anybody else to accept you? And we all go through that. I did the same thing. When I met my wife, I was 39, and the night I met her, I just said, you know what, come what may, I'm comfortable with who I am. And that night, just miraculously, I sat in a chair at a poetry reading, and there she was. And it was like, oh my gosh. And here, I'm 20 something years later in this house with her. And so we all do that journey. And the other part of just finding the tone, I met Julie Marie Wade, who unfortunately can't be with us tonight. She teaches at FIU, and they were starting classes today. Julie has a book called When I Was Straight, and it's about her series of poems, about 23 poems, I think. Half of them are when she was straight and hiding it, and then the other half after she had come out. And Julie's work was told the hard stories, but also had a sense of humor. And what I find in my history experience with the LGBTQ community is people who have a sensitivity, which is something Michael brought out, is that every time you walk into a room, you have to be so hyper aware of if somebody might threaten you. And I think Black people live that way. Everybody will, but guys like me, the white straight male, I'm the easy, I walk everywhere and the door's open, right? Everybody else lives this other experience of feeling threatened, possibly because of where they come from and who they are. So finding that space where we got the story and the honesty and that the richness of the human face, which I think comes through better in black and white, by the way. It was a great call by Freddy to do black and white, but really to not make this about tragedy, but to really make it about triumph. And for me, any straight person who sees this, if they walk out of it and they have a problem with anybody in this film, I say, here's a mirror, because they're not the problem, you are. And that was really, I think, for me as a straight person, I wanted to help straight people make that bridge to where they found the language to talk to a community where they might not know how to enter a conversation.
I think it even goes beyond that, because I didn't know everybody in this group, but some of them I did. And we went way further than just coming through it. I started the gay choral movement in Florida. Dan Bassett has one of the most respected gay lesbian bands and youth gay lesbian bands in the United States. Michael Goodman, his list of accomplishments is just miles long. And what she does with her kids and for young people, I mean, it's more than we just came through it. We have all, and I brag and I do it proudly, we've all accomplished some really great things that have made a difference, not only in our community, but they've reached beyond.
Can I ask a question on that, just to take Joe's job away for a minute?
I'm having a good time here.
Had you not come out, how do you think your feeling of being successful or your ability to have succeeded the way you have might have been changed or affected?
When I came out, it gave me a courage and a confidence I probably never would have experienced.
Yeah, Well, again, thank you for all these stories, and thank you for highlighting some of the incredible work that is being done by these very people we're talking to. Freddy, to get back to you, we know you knew Gary. Did you know any other people, or were you familiar with them? And how did that sort of affect? Did it affect at all sort of the working relationship when you knew somebody or didn't know somebody?
Yeah, well, there was a screening process. So Jeff can talk to that about what the layers were. But when I was brought in, I saw some holes, and then I submitted Omar. Well, I asked three friends of mine that were Latino, gay and Latino. There was the screen disappeared. But it's me. So I brought in three friends, and I said, hey, these are three people that I think would be a great addition, basically, to the cast. And one of them was Omar. And Omar I know personally, but I had also done another project for a friend, where it was like a video magazine project. And Omar was a part of that project. And the project was focused on my friend, but Omar ate the camera. I mean, the camera loved him, and he just knew exactly what to do. He play to the camera, and I'm like, look at this guy. He's making my friend look like a piece of shit. And it was great. And then I looked at Omar's background, and he was an anchor. He was a news reporter. So I was like, okay, so he knows how to be on TV. He knows what to do. And that was like the whole thing was just let's get a dynamic group. And everybody was amazing. I mean, amazing. There was no regrets.
The good thing about this is, let me just end that, is nobody was left on the cutting room floor. Everybody that came in really was comfortable in the space, and it was a very relaxed space. And I think it was alluded to before, it was very conversational. In going through it, what we really were very keen on, and I know the term diversity is, diversity is you walk into any room, it's diverse. There's all kinds of people, down here, diversity is a piece of cake, right? But what we really wanted to be representative of different stories. So when Christine Walters, who unfortunately couldn't join us tonight, represented a bisexual experience, and also being of Jamaican heritage and talking about how religion had been a part of her process, which Omar alluded to. That was the last question, by the way, of the film, Omar talking about religion needing to apologize. And that was a powerful moment. Talking about religion from these different backgrounds. Michael, I think, come from a Jewish and Christian background. So we were able to piece together, Francesca came to us, Todd Delmay at the Hollywood LGBTQ Council had told us about Francesca, had introduced to her and Christine. I met Julie Wade. She just walked into the Art and Culture Center one day, and she was with an author named Denise Duhamel, who I knew, and I said, Denise, what are you doing here? And she introduced me to Julie, and Julie was there with her wife, and I thought immediately, I want you involved in what we're doing. And she didn't know me from anybody. And I think she liked what we were trying to do. And she was on board right from the beginning, and has been, she's going to be doing a reading at the Art and Culture Center of her work on October the 3rd. That'll be a virtual reading. And she brought, for me, a literary voice and a creative voice. And we were able to, Freddie didn't think this was going to come off, but I'd read Julie's book when I was straight, and she has 3 poems sort of outing herself to her grandmother and her mother and her father, and really, really powerful stuff. So I said, Julie, just if you can read them, and then we'll see if there's a way to make it work. And Freddie used those really expertly as transitions and to break the sort of the mood and move us into the next phase of the film. And he found a way to use that in a way that contributed to the stories, but also cinematically, really worked as an art piece.
Yeah, that was one of the joys of the film was, I've been doing this a long time, gay and lesbian film world, and you so often feel like, things are forced, like you have to have one of everything. And here it just felt like they really are all part of the community, and they are all important. And so it worked so well. So I appreciated to hear all
One
of that.
thing, Gary, as the elder statesman, brought something really powerful to this. Truly, as I'm listening to him, and he's so calm, and he was so assured in his story. And then Michael, who went to the same schools I went to growing up, he was a couple years behind me, and I know where he grew up. I know his neighborhood because I lived in it. And these stories of generational people who've come from a time when it wasn't like it is now, where my daughters are just used to having, they don't even notice whether someone's gay or it doesn't matter. And those stories of generational stories, that I think was necessary to have in here as well.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the individual stories and community, and I sort of want to, we need to wind down here, but sort of focus on community, because we have so many people who are so powerful and give so much of their time and energy to the community, be it from a public service sector or just being a member of the community. What are some things, and I think it's always important to sort of look at yourselves and your community through an actual light, and there are certainly issues. Have you found that South Florida, how do I want to say, is it getting better? Is it continuing to get better? Is it getting worse due to the political economy? And what are some real things that we sort of need to focus on, sort of head on, if you will? And then how do we continue to make South Florida the best it can be?
Are you talking as gay people?
Yeah, I'm talking, and through the chorus and through the Hollywood LGBT Council. What are ways that we can sort of make sure that progress that we've made for so many years, because I think so many of us are getting in this dire situation with the new, not so new, regime. But I don't want to get overly political. But how do we make sure we continue to?
I'll start answering that one.
I think this is where Francesca is so important because of her courage. The rest of us, we're still progressing, but I think Francesca and the trans community, they've recently been attacked, and we need to stand up and be beside and behind them and make sure that whole movement goes on so that truly nobody gets left behind.
Absolutely, you're absolutely correct. And that's one of the reasons why I decided last year to join the Hollywood LGBTQ Council, because what we do is we identify and advocate for the need in our community, and definitely the trans community. Where we are now is sort of where the gay civil rights movement was in, say, the 70s and 80s. So yeah, our community is really in need of educating people. I think people are afraid of what they don't know about. And in the trans community, one of the things that really stands out is gender identity pushes a lot of buttons for people across the board. So we're just try to explain things to people, and that's why I tell my story. I'm the subject of a documentary that's 7.5 years in the making, and I speak not because I want to be in the spotlight with my life story, but I speak because I'd like to inspire other people to accept others, and also to shed some understanding of what it's like to go through the process of coming out and getting used to a new identity. It's a very difficult situation, and it would be better for trans people, obviously, if society could be more supportive and at least respectful and understanding. And then also the violence that's out there towards the trans community is absolutely unacceptable. So that's why I speak out.
Agree.
Thank you. You inspire many of us, so thank you for the work that you do. Last question, I'm sorry we have to sort of wrap it up, but it's just sort of the takeaway. What do you hope people who see this, spend this 20 minutes with all of you, what do you hope they take away? Francesca, you want to start?
I want people to take away that we're all amazing and we all have something to offer in society. And I love you, Freddy.
Love you too, Francesca.
Omar?
I love you, Freddy, too. Of course. You know what I hope that people do notice? One of the, among many other things, is the connection that we all have. All the characters in this piece of work that we call open dialogues, is that we all, it's okay, but because we all have connecting points, which is the pain, the embarrassment, the worry, the scare, just like Francesca, the suicidal thoughts that somehow crosses your mind at some point. questioning their religion, questioning why this, why that, why me, or why not you, things like that. And though we all have those connecting dots, when they see the movie, or those who have seen it already will pinpoint and say, okay, this is connected. And they should say, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay as a viewer, that, okay, I feel that way, and I connect with that. So they will see that in the group too.
Thank you, Omar. Gary, takeaways?
Oh, I totally agree. Omar is exactly right. There was a book several years ago called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And I want people to realize I'm okay, you're okay, and we're all in this world together.
So fabulous.
It's up to us to make it all right and to work and be safe for everyone.
Amen. Michael?
Yeah, I'm on the same sentiment. I mean, for me, we're not alone. We're all in this together. And I think I even said in the documentary, we all breathe the same air. And, I want to give kudos to Outshine, because Outshine is a way to bring the community together. You talked about unity and community. Outshine is a way that the community can come together, and organizations and festivals and things like that bring us all together for a common bond to share and unite is amazing. So kudos to Outshine.
Hear, hear.
Thank you. Jeff?
I think for me as a straight person, it's again creating a language where a community that doesn't have a real understanding or a way to talk about it finds a little better way. One of the next sort of life of this film, after we exhibit it again, we'll be back at the center through October 25th, but we're looking to do a screening at FAU, we're looking to do screening at Broward College. I've been in contact with a number of nonprofits who have reached out to me about doing screenings and creating conversation around it. So we're really looking, I think building allyship is critical to any sort of, Robert Runcie used the term normalizing equality, which I thought was a great term. He's a superintendent of Broward schools. And I think that's, I guess, what we're all hoping for, is just to normalize each other. And we recognize our differences, but we don't hold them over anybody or hold them against anybody. But I think for me, it would be using this to expand the conversation and into spaces where people, HR departments with corporations. I think this is a great space to go into, and again, places where people, I think there's a term tolerant, which we don't find is really a good word, but acceptance, I think, is where we want to get to, just accepting people. And that would be the hope for me with the film.
Thank you. And Jeff, thank you for being an ally. We certainly have made inroads in our own community, and it's people like you who help us make inroads outside of that community. So
we love you, Jeff.
It's actually very easy, because I go way back, went to art school in Atlanta back in 1980, and I moved to the Midtown gay neighborhood. I'm walking around one, this was my neighborhood, and you just live there and you find that people are we're all, like Michael says, we're all just trying to make it, man. It's not too much more complicated than that. Amen. So I appreciate what everyone on this film has done, but everybody in your community that really, has taken a lot of crap and stayed, and made Broward County a great place to live. I grew up here, and I love this place because of the diversity of the people and the openness and the welcoming that we give, I think, to all communities. So thank you.
Thank you. And final word to Freddy. What are the takeaways for you of people who walk away from open dialogues?
I think Francesca said it best, right? You walk away and you realize one thing, right? Michael said we breathe the same air. Francesca said she knows the solution to all our problems: acceptance.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Freddy, Dan, Francesca, Gary, Michael, Omar, Jeff. We appreciate you being here and sharing this wonderful film with us. I think we're going to take a little photo, and then we're going to end on a trailer of the film, just for people who may not, because some people, thanks to this new virtual world we live in, some people may actually be seeing you and this before they see the film. So we'll show a little trailer to give them a little view of what they might see. So.
All right, so it's time for that group photo. So everybody, let's do like a thumbs up photo, thumbs up for open dialogues, everybody. All right, ready and 1, 2, 3. All right, let's do one with love. So hearts up, hearts up. Everybody get your hearts up. Show some love. Show some love. Yes, with a little heart. All right.
Okay.
Ready, and 1, 2, 3. And last one, because it's open dialogue. Give us that crazy open mouth, like, oh my God, we're showing the short on Sunday. Go crazy, go wild. Open dialogues, open mouths. Ready, and 1, 2, 3. All right, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Omar, you had a great heart. Your heart was perfect. It was like totally symmetrical. I was like very jealous. Anyway, thank you again. We'll leave you all with the trailer.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Outshine.
Thank you, Outshine.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody.
Can't wait to see you all again.
We were driving and driving and driving, and this van was like driving right up like the back of our car and like shining the lights in and trying to push us off.
I think the perception is that it's still not accepted. It's still a heterosexual world that we live in.
How many people have took their own lives because they thought that God doesn't love them.
Within the next 2 weeks, I had a high-powered rifle shot through my home. Then we found a cardboard box taped to the bottom of my car.
Out of hating myself as much as society says I should, somehow I pulled myself out of that.
And 5 guys attacked a friend of mine. For someone to have that much animosity and hate, it was devastating.
If you haven't experienced something, it's hard to empathize with it.
When I was a little kid and terrified of coming out. And now I don't think twice about saying, yes, that's my husband.
I can open doors for my students that they tend to be more willing to walk through. And I can expose them to literature that will open their minds to all kinds of ways of being in the world.